A cataclysm in Israel approximately 8,300 years ago. A cataclysm struck a large settlement in what is now modern-day Israel. In what was confirmed to be less than a year, presumably only across a single day, a successful coastal town of 2,000 people was completely abandoned, with people to never return again. This disaster must have struck suddenly, as stockpiles of fish were left alone to decay after it struck. Yet, there were no signs of warfare or wildfire, and this section of Israel has not seen any volcanic eruptions for millions of years. Despite all of this, the conclusion was eventually made that the ancient village of Atlat Yam, which now lies 12 meters or 39.4 feet below sea level, was surprisingly destroyed by volcano. But the culprit was not any active volcano in the Middle East. Instead, it was a now famous volcano 1,890 kilometers to the west-northwest on the modern-day island of Sicily. There, the towering Mount Etna stratovolcano rose to a height of 3,600 meters or 11,811 in ancient tsunami feet, a full 250 meters taller than it is today. But, in mere moments this would forever change, as an ongoing landslide on the volcano's eastern flank picked up in speed. Suddenly, this slope passed a threshold of no return, causing an 80 square kilometer region approximately 300 meters or 984 feet thick to all at once collapse into the Mediterranean Sea to the east. As a massive 25 cubic kilometer debris avalanche flattened and buried everything in its path, it would only take 3 minutes to enter the sea. Upon entering the Mediterranean Sea, the landslide continued eastwards at a high speed, all the while displacing large volumes of water, forming a tsunami. This tsunami had an initial wave height of 40 meters or 131 feet, which crashed into the entire island of Sicily, inundating coastlines and toppling millions of trees. While this wave would decrease in height as it expanded outwards from its source, it would go on to flood coastlines along the entire eastern Mediterranean Sea. Reaching Cyprus 3 hours later, the tsunami had decreased to only half a meter in height. Yet, as this wave approached what is now northwestern Israel, the near-shore topography allowed the tsunami to regain some height, increasing to 2.5 meters or 8.2 feet tall. For clarification, 8,300 years ago, the current coastline was approximately a kilometer west 6,300 BCE sea level of its modern location at Atlat Yam, as the global sea level was 13.7 meters or 45 feet lower than it is today. Thus, Atlat Yam was located 320 meters or 1,050 feet inland from the coastline, about the same distance away that Neve Yam is today, but unlike Neve Yam was only 1.7 meters or 5.6 feet above sea level. Thus, when the tsunami struck, it flooded houses, washing away everything but the foundation, with the town being flooded by an 80 centimeter or 2.62 foot tall wall of water. Crops and irrigation were instantaneously ruined, but more destructive was the fact that the freshwater well was also flooded, now filled with saltwater which could not be drank from in the future. Thus, those who survived the initial waves fled and never came back, as all of their food and water was now contaminated by saltwater. And this is why Atlat Yam was abandoned, being destroyed by a volcanic landslide that originated more than 1,000 kilometers away. What caused the landslide, but why did this landslide occur? It was initially thought that a dike expansion underneath Etna's eastern flank was the cause, as suggested by the fact that in some earthquake sequences before an eruption occurs at Etna, magma seemingly starts beneath Valle del Bove before going towards the summit. Yet, the most recent evidence suggests a completely different culprit: gravity. As the volcanic rocks of Mount Etna were emplaced on top of older rock which is less prone to erosion and more stable. An example to represent this, I have a cookie sheet, a pillow, and a placemat. Pretend that this is the eastern slope of Mount Etna from a northern view facing south 8,300 years ago. The cookie sheet represents the older rocks while the placemat represents Etna's volcanic rocks. At one point, this system was in equilibrium. However, once additional volcanic rocks aka additional mass were emplaced in Etna's summit region, it eventually caused the entire top layer of rocks on a section of the volcano to collapse in a massive landslide. Today, the scars from this ancient landslide can be found on Etna's Valle del Bove, which has cliff faces surpassing 300 meters in height in some areas. As a final note, I would like to thank this channel's patrons on Patreon and channel members on YouTube.